Hi guys, welcome to the Old World Show. We've got a really special little vignette to bring to you. We've got Ed from Close Order, off the back of some really good tournament results. Just thought it'd be really interesting to get you on the show, Ed. So welcome, firstly.
Thank you
How
for
are you?
having me. It's great
Oh,
to be here.
oh, good. Oh, good, good. That's what we'd like to hear. And thank you for coming on, for sure. Um, Really, it's just we've done a few meta-analysis, a meta-analysis video, and obviously your list was highlighted in that, and I felt, we know you quite well through a few chats that we have. It would be wrong not to get you on and have your own thoughts on how it worked, your experiences with the opponents that you faced. So just talk me through it. What was the thoughts behind the list?
So I
I'll get it
have
up.
played. So I've played Old World now from the start, and it took me a little while to get used to the game. The first army I played was High Elves, and I put a dragon on the table and then some other stuff. And I was pretty bummed that all my list did was have a dragon and then nothing else. So after that point, I played around with a couple of different armies. I started off with Orcs and Goblins. Hit a 2-3, a 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. Then I changed over to Skaven, had some good results with that. And then I changed over to Dark Elves as well. And basically, I've played the first sort of 7 or 8 months of the edition, or the game, I guess, because we've had a fresh start, without using dragons. And I thought, you know what? I've been good. I've eaten my greens. I want to have my dessert now, and I want to play 2 dragons. So that was the starting point to the list. And
Bro.
yeah, so it was sort of like which army does double dragons best. So I looked at some various options. Chaos was obviously one of them with the Arcane Journal. High Elves can do it as well.
Hmm.
The thing that really sort of drew me into Dark Elves for Double Dragon was they've got their own ward save. They've got the Pendant of Kaleth, which is a 5-up ward all of the time, or if you're strength 5 or greater, it's a 4-up ward. So that was quite nice because then you can have Double Dragon both with a ward save, which I think is important if you're going for it. That was the sort of genesis of the list, I'd say.
Absolutely. Okay, brilliant. It's like a juiced up lady's gift on the dragons, which is it's just really
Oh
nice.
yeah, yeah.
Make it
It's
go
it's
for a breakfast.
Bretonians on crack.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really interesting because when we were in the LGT, we have a chat for the LGT event that went through, and you're talking about it with James Ramsey quite a lot,
Mm.
and definitely seemed to be a bit of a learning curve, which you've really hit your stride on coming into the event. Um, how did you find the sort of the play style? Did you have to alter your play style a little bit, or did you think it was quite a natural fit once you sort of got to grips with the dragons? Well,
Yeah, so once I understood how the list should play and then made
mhm,
tweaks based on that, it was great. So I started off, played 2 games with it, and went, actually, dragons are not as brain dead as people seem to think. Now that people have
mhm,
worked out how to position against dragons, especially staying out of charge arcs and
mhm.
all that sort of jazz, or setting up combat bricks that have, the static combat 7 and a musician, so they're going to challenge you out, all of that good
Yeah.
stuff there. The dragons are not as obvious as they were at the start of the edition, so I had like an on ramp where I had to learn them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that dragons are like incredibly technical, but they're harder than I thought they were. So first couple of games I played terribly, basically.
Mm.
Then I played 2 more games and sort of got a feel for the list, and
Mhm.
then I went to LGT. So that was kind of the testing process.
Yeah.
But if once I understood what was strong about it, it made a lot of sense to me. So I would describe my list as points denial
Yeah.
because I'm running effectively 1,300 points of things that shouldn't die, which is 2 dragons and then the Cold One Knights. And then I've got 700 points of stuff that's really hard to pin down. That's basically how the list
Mhm.
goes. So a lot of my games I'd find that I was down to, just into double digits of models. Almost
Wow.
everything was dead. But there were
Yeah.
2 Dark Riders, and I started with 8, so you didn't get any points. There was two
Yeah.
Shades left, and I started with 5, so you didn't get any points left. And I was only
Absolutely.
giving up sort of 400 or 500 points in my games, despite limping along and just
Mhm.
having 2 dragons plus a handful of really low wound models.
Absolutely. And only giving up 400 or 500 points is really strong. It's very very difficult to do.
Mm.
So that's excellent. Now, obviously, we went through LGT with yourself, and it was fairly. You got best player, which was really really good.
Thank
We
you.
weren't at the TSN event. Um, 5 wins, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah,
about 5-0.
yeah,
Fantastic.
fully undefeated win, which was nice because it's the best sort of run out. It would have
Mhm.
been more exciting to get a full one and then just squeak a win on points, but the five
Yes.
and 0 was definitely nice to get.
Absolutely, and also 5-0 is really quite rare. Usually, the winner of those events are on 4-on-1, so clearly, obviously, doing something right for sure. When we did the meta-analysis of that, there was a lot of dragons there by the sounds of it, and one thing that we actually talked about on the video that we released today, which I will link in the description, is that dragon on dragon. Well, that is a pretty tricky matchup. Did you find that you were facing a lot of dragons, or was it just in the top three?
So there
Um,
was, I think, from memory, there were 16 dragons at the event, out of 24 players.
yeah.
But I think a lot of people had multiple dragons. So though I think it was something like only 7 or 8 players brought dragons.
That's
It,
nice.
it was it was just hugely stacked. So across my 5 games, I played against 7 dragons, and I had 2 of the dragons. So there
Wow.
were only 7 dragons unaccounted for. Round 1, I played into double dragons. Round 2, I played into a single dragon. Round 3, I played against Skaven. No
Mhm.
dragons there. Round 4, 3 dragons. Round 5, single dragon. So almost every round, I was playing against at least one dragon.
Okay, so yeah, certainly sounds like a pretty tough field. Why do you think that was? Why do you think dragons hit such a? Well, we used the term in vogue yesterday, and I feel like it seems to be that they're in vogue at the moment. Why do you think that is currently? Because 16, a 24-man event, is a lot of dragons.
Yeah, although I think I'd have to go back and check. I think over half of the field weren't running dragons.
Okay.
So if you look at it that way, it was more that
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people who have decided to go with dragons really doubled down on it. We
yes.
had
Go big or go home.
some Mortuary Cult players with 2 dragons, obviously myself with 2 dragons. There was a Warriors of Chaos list with triple dragon,
Yeah,
which was,
Galric. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, and the Warpfire dragon
mhm,
as well.
absolutely.
So it was, I think, it was just a bit of a perfect storm. It was a very different event to the normal TSN events. A lot of the regular crowd wasn't there,
Okay.
and it was a lot more meta armies. I played against Mortuary Cult twice. The
Wow.
first 2 rounds were Mortuary Cult. I played against Vampire Counts in the last round.
Ooh.
I played against triple Dragon Warriors of Chaos in round 4. The only sort of non-meta list I played against was Skaven, and I say this every time I talk about it. It's Jack Allen Skaven. Jack is the guy who came up with the Empire build.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
if he's brought something, he's cooking. Let
Yeah,
the
it's
man
got a
cook.
spicy meatball to come up against. Brill. So, do you feel that there is if there was a matchup that you didn't want to face, what would that be?
Ooh, Mortuary Cult. I really didn't want to play against Mortuary Cult. I really didn't want to play against Triple Dragons. Um, what else was there? The Bretonian. There wasn't a huge Bretonian threat. There were only 2 players, and I think they
Hmm.
actually didn't end up doing. They didn't hit the top tables. By the time I was 2 games in, I
Hmm.
think I knew that if I kept winning my games, I wouldn't have to play against the Mortuary, the Bretonians. So that
Hmm.
wasn't too much of a concern.
Okay.
But yeah, it was basically just Mortuary Cult. Those Caskets of Souls are brutal for killing dragons.
What with the leadership debuffs and the pure magic that they put out?
Yeah, so the what was nice was I've got my general who is leadership 10. So even if you hit him with the 2 debuffs, he's now leadership 7, which means on average he passes the save. Passes the
Oh,
leadership test for a casket.
yeah,
At
yeah.
that point, you're not too worried. But your opponent's
Mhm.
probably going to run 2 caskets. You're probably going to fail one of them. You're
Yeah.
going to take a load of wounds from the one of the caskets. And I did in game number 2. Basically, I knew that against a double casket player who also had loads of Boa Shabti, I had 1 turn that I could allow
Okay.
my opponent to shoot me. So I hid behind a building. My opponent went first, and then on my first turn, marched it 20 inches. Arcane Urgency'd it another 20
Yeah.
inches, just dropped it right in the middle of my opponent's army out of charge arcs and went,
Hmm.
"You've got 1 turn to kill me."
Yeah.
And he did 7 wounds out of 9.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that was I was woo!
Plenty fun time. Yeah.
It really, yeah.
Absolutely.
Then you come into your turn, you're like, I've got to charge these Boa Shabti. They can standard shoot me. I got away with it, fortunately, with my 2-up save against non-magical shooting. I was okay. Um, go into combat, take a wound back in combat. I'm down to 1 wound. Kill the Ashabti over I was like 2 or 3 turns. overrun into a casket, kill that, and then my opponent's like, cool, let me just roll to see if the casket explodes and kills you.
Oh no.
Got away with that.
Yeah.
So it was a real sort of like game of inches hanging on. That dragon ended up dying to scarab swarms, which is hilarious. Given everything that it survived, I charged
Yeah.
scarab swarms because I had to try and get out of the situation I was in.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got loads of shooting, so I just wanted to kill something and really overrun as far as possible. And yeah, I killed 2 swarm bases. Would have crumbled them, but then they snuck 1 wound through, which was
It's
what it
just
is.
devastating. Yeah, and yet somehow moments like those are what makes this game great. And they'd like it's
Oh yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious for that. Brill. So if there was, one thing when we were talking about it in our LGG chat, we were always talking about sort of list ideas, and Ramsey had a few as to what you could do to improve it. Do you think that there's now you've had 2 events where basically you've had 2, not the LGT wasn't quite perfect, but you got the best overall, and then you got the perfect result at TSN. Is there anything that you do to change your list?
I actually really like the list as it is. So Dark Elves are in an interesting spot. The stuff that's really good is really good. The dragons are fantastic. The stuff that's not good is most of the book. So, and I don't get me wrong, I think if we see some meta changes where infantry become better, I think there are maybe some other builds that you can bring in. But everything kind of works together. So the main thing that Ramsey was talking about was changing my level 4 on Dragon to a level 4 on Pegasus or just Steed, and then have a level 2. And you go for double pillar of fire. The reason that works is because you have focus familiars, and when you use a focus familiar, pick a point within 12 inches, you cast from that range. Both tournaments I was at ruled that you are dispelled from your normal range, so you could just cast pillar of fire not only out of dispel range, but you can fire at 24 inches on turn 1, basically.
Yeah, and then just a fate, it dispels. It's the only thing that's going to stop it.
Yeah, and you that's like what 1 in 12 to dispel it, and you can only get 1 of them. Here's the thing. I actually think the dragon is better than that. For me, personally. It's difficult because you find a list that gels with your playstyle, and it just works perfectly for me. But everything interlocks. So you've got the sorceress who's going to stay back and do the range damage and put pressure on, but also have like a zone of control. You've got the Dreadlord, who I'm quite happy to throw in aggressively. He's a bit of a beater. He's not the best Lord on Dragon. Something like a Chaos Lord who's upgraded is going to be better. But honestly, if you don't, keep it pretty bare bones, a Chaos Lord, the Dreadlord's right up there with it. It's pretty comparable.
Okay.
So that's your 1,000 points that in theory doesn't die. I think I lost 1 dragon over the 5 games.
Wow.
Yeah, you really just got to keep them safe. But then you've got the range threat, you've got the arcane urgency most games, because you've got 5 out of the 6 spells from battle magic, so you usually get the arcane urgency. But then you've got only 3 drops, which is huge for this list, because you get to put down 3 things, get the near guaranteed +1, which means you can put the pressure on very early. If you've got the +1, you're like 69% chance to go first, something like that.
Wow.
Of course, I went first, I think, once out of the 5 games. So
of course,
maybe that doesn't matter. But you then have just loads of scouts, so you get to see. Yes, your opponent sees where your dragons go, but that's not super important because you can arcane urgency.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then you can drop the scouts and really just sort of put overwhelming pressure on one part of the board. Repeater crossbows don't kill Jack, to be clear. Like they do very little damage, but you can focus that negligible fire to a point where you go, oh, well, I put enough in. Maybe I'm going to cast Curse of Arrow Attraction turn 1, the focus familiar. You don't necessarily want to, but if you want to kill something, you can just overwhelm one small force of your opponent and just play that sort of game of inches and then snowball it as much as possible.
Absolutely. And 100. What I would say is that 100. Is it 108 shots you got with the repeater crossbowmen? They don't. Something like that. It's a lot. It's in the hundreds anyway, and or I'm fairly certain, is it
78? An earlier draft I had a lot more shots, but yeah, you're looking at about 80 shots. I mean, I was looking at big units of shades because I thought the best of the ballistic skill was going to be really good. I found that units above 5 or maybe 8 models were really unwieldy and difficult to use because they are movement 5, and if you march them, they don't get to do anything. So I didn't stick with the bigger units.
Okay. Well, what I would say has been that even with 80 dice, you're rolling 80 dice at someone, there's a certain amount of psychological damage that puts on someone as well. It's like, it certainly gives them something to think about, even if it doesn't actually do anything. Brill, so what are your plans going forward? Are you sticking with this list, or are you in the lab working on something a bit different?
Yeah, I'm cooking. I'm trying to work out what I want to do next. I feel like I've completed Dark Elves. I don't know. That's not to
Completely, mate.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
not to sound big headed, but I did
Mm.
back to back weekends. I got best player, best overall general, and then
Yeah.
I got an event win. And I don't know what I'd be sort of like striving for if I played
Hmm.
the same list. I think it would be I'd find it dull. So for me, I'm trying to work out what I want to play next, and there's a lot of good options. I might just stick with the sort of evasive theme. I really like Wood Elves. I played
Mm.
a game with them last night. Got a, I think we didn't add up the points, but it was basic. I think it was a 20-0.
Hmm.
So that definitely suits my um my evasive play style. You know, the best defense is not being able to be hit. I
Absolutely.
really enjoy that. So I'm writing some lists there. But Mortuary Cult's good. Bretonians, I probably want to play them before they get nerfed at some point. My next big event
It's
is
not going to
the
happen, man. Never going to happen.
oh, it has to for the love of God, it's got to happen. I think my next big event is the Square based online tournament.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I've got a list that is like how good it is kind of whatever. It needs to be at least decent. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be like a world ender. I'm not going to win it. Like that's
Hmm.
not my goal. But
Yeah.
it has to be something that I enjoy playing. I took a troll hood list last time that I didn't test, and I did
Okay.
5 weeks of just the first week I played. I was like, oh, this is lacking something. Week 2, oh, this sucks. Week
Yeah.
3, I'm having a bad time. I played into 5 gun lines as well, so that really didn't help.
Oh man,
Yeah, it was
it's an
rough.
absolute
So
nightmare.
I just need to make sure I play something that's fun. That's the main
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Something that yeah is going to give you a good game for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Brill. Well, I think our next event is going to be TSN in December.
Mm.
For yourself, myself, and Andy. I believe you're going. Is that right?
I haven't booked a ticket for it yet, but I am looking at getting something. I've got a one-day event in Saffron Walden, as
Okay.
run by Elmo Miniatures Lewis, obviously on my channel quite a lot. He's running a couple of 1 days this year, moving up to 2 days next year. I'm doing
Fantastic.
the War for the Riverlands at the TSN Arena. That's going to be a lot of fun. Magic Rivers, so we'll have
Okay.
to see how that plays out. It's going to be a bit of a like, let's keep the core rules the same, but let's change the deployment, like the maps.
I think that's a
That's
good idea. Rob's got a really
yeah,
good formula as it is. Don't want to change too much. But the maps for sure, just to get a bit of variance in it, would be really really cool.
yeah, absolutely.
Bro. Okay. Well, excellent. So anyway, thank you very much for coming on. It is only a short, a short segment. But I just thought, we've got to get you. I think we've got to know you quite well through that chat recently. So
Mm.
it would be wrong not to get you on just to have a little discussion about it. Okay. Um, is there anything that you want to say? Anything else you want a closing thoughts on the list at all?
I just really don't want the game to continue to be in a state where it's double dragons,
Mm.
Bretonians, and Tomb Kings. I'd love to see some rebalancing. Don't get me wrong, I'm having a lot of fun with them, and I don't think it's a problem right now.
Mhm.
But if we have like a year of this, I think things would start to get a bit stale. So I'm hoping to see some changes.
Yeah, I mean, so when we went to the meta analysis, we looked at 6 different lists, and there were 8 dragons between the 6 different players. And I don't know, it's fine. I mean, I played against Andy's 3 Chaos Dragon lists. I think a huge inspiration from the TSN
Hmm.
top three list, and it was okay. I feel like it can make the game um a little limited
Sure.
maybe in the experience. So hopefully things will sort of shake up. And I play Brett's myself, but yeah, I agree. I think something definitely needs to change. Nothing. The flying circus was fun, and it's getting a bit stale
Yeah,
at the moment.
to be clear, I don't think dragons are the best thing in the game. I think there's actually quite a lot of stuff that works against them. Here's the problem: some armies just can't deal with them.
Mm,
And also, if you take off, the flying circus and the mortuary cult lists, dragons then just go back to reigning supreme because both of
mm,
those lists play dragons quite well. So
yeah,
I'd like
absolutely.
to see a shaving of the top 15% and a bit of a boost to the bottom 15%. That would be
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely. I think it's just a bit of a variance. Variety is the spice of life, isn't it? So that's
Absolutely.
brill. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Ed, and thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, we can possibly pass them on to Ed. So just put a comment down below. Other than that, we will see you in the next